The moment I walked through the mahogany doors of Golden Years Manor carrying my new set of master keys, I saw the shock register on my father's weathered face. He was sitting in his usual spot by the grand piano, pontificating to anyone within earshot about how millennials had ruined the economy, when he noticed me approaching with the facility manager. His dismissive smirk faltered as the manager handed me the ceremonial plaque that read, "Owner and Executive Director," with my name etched in gold letters below. The same man who had spent years telling me I was too lazy to amount to anything was about to discover that his spoiled millennial daughter had just purchased the entire retirement community where he and my mother now lived. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The journey to this moment began 3 years ago during what I now refer to as the Thanksgiving Massacre of 2021. I was 28 then, working as a freelance digital marketing consultant while living in a modest apartment in downtown Portland. My parents, Richard and Barbara Chen, had invited me to their sprawling suburban home for the holiday, and I should have known from my mother's tone on the phone that this wouldn't be a peaceful family gathering. I arrived at their pristine colonial house in Westfield Heights, carrying homemade cranberry sauce and what I foolishly believed was good news about my growing business. The familiar smell of my mother's famous turkey greeted me at the door, along with the sound of my father's booming voice discussing politics with my Uncle Frank in the living room. Everything seemed normal until we sat down for dinner, and the conversation inevitably turned to my career. "So Maya," my father began, carving the turkey with theatrical precision, "when are you going to get a real job? This internet hobby of yours can't last forever." The word, hobby, dripped with condescension as he served himself an enormous portion of stuffing. My mother nodded in agreement, her perfectly coiffed silver hair catching the candlelight as she adjusted her designer reading glasses. I took a deep breath, remembering the communication techniques I'd learned in college about dealing with difficult family dynamics. "Actually, Dad, my digital marketing firm had its best quarter yet. I just signed 3 new clients, including that tech startup that's about to go public. I'm projected to make 6 figures this year." The laughter that erupted from my father's end of the table was sharp and dismissive. He exchanged knowing glances with my Uncle Frank, who owned a traditional manufacturing business and shared my father's skeptical views about anything involving technology. "6 figures doing what? Playing on computers all day? Maya, your generation thinks clicking buttons on social media is work. In my day, we built things with our hands. We created real value." My mother chimed in with her signature passive-aggressive smile. "Honey, we're just concerned about your future. What happens when this internet fad passes? You don't have any real skills or experience. Maybe it's time to consider going back to school for something practical, like accounting or nursing. Something stable that will always be needed." The conversation continued to spiral downward from there. My father launched into his favorite lecture about how millennials had been handed everything on a silver platter and couldn't handle real responsibility. He detailed how his generation had worked multiple jobs, saved every penny, and built the prosperity that my generation was now squandering through avocado toast and expensive coffee drinks. "You kids think you're entitled to success without putting in the work," he continued, gesturing dramatically with his wine glass. "You want everything immediately. No patience, no discipline, no understanding of what it takes to build something meaningful. You live in fantasyland where you think typing on a laptop is the same as real labor." My Uncle Frank nodded vigorously in agreement. "Richard's absolutely right. These millennials have no work ethic. They expect participation trophies for showing up. In the real world, results matter, not good intentions or creative thinking." He emphasized the last 2 words with air quotes, as if creativity was somehow a character flaw. I tried repeatedly to explain the complexity of digital marketing, the strategic thinking required, the long hours I worked building client relationships and analyzing market data. I described the campaigns I'd developed that had generated millions in revenue for my clients, the innovative social media strategies that had revolutionized how businesses reached their customers. None of it mattered. Every achievement was dismissed as luck or timing rather than skill and dedication. "Anyone can post on Facebook," my father interrupted when I tried to explain the intricacies of targeted advertising campaigns. That's not a career, Maya. That's what teenagers do for fun. You're almost 30 years old. It's time to grow up and join the real world. The final blow came when my mother suggested I move back home to save money while I figured out what I really wanted to do with my life. The implication was clear. My business wasn't legitimate, my success wasn't real, and I was essentially an overgrown child playing pretend in the adult world. I left that dinner feeling smaller than I had in years. The confidence I'd built through my professional achievements crumbled under the weight of their relentless criticism. That night, lying in my childhood bedroom while visiting, I stared at the glow-in-the-dark stars I'd placed on the ceiling in high school and made a decision that would change everything. I wouldn't just prove them wrong. I would do it in a way they could never dismiss or minimize. The next morning, I drove back to Portland with a new sense of purpose. My parents had unknowingly provided me with the motivation I needed to take my business to the next level. Their dismissive attitude toward my generation and my work had revealed something important. They viewed success through a very narrow lens, one that prioritized traditional markers of achievement over innovation and adaptability. Over the following weeks, I threw myself into research and planning with unprecedented intensity. If my parents respected only tangible, traditional business success, then I would give them exactly that. I began studying real estate investment, particularly in the senior care industry. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was considering investing in facilities designed for the very generation that had dismissed my capabilities. The numbers were compelling. The baby boomer generation was aging rapidly, creating enormous demand for quality retirement communities. Many existing facilities were outdated, poorly managed, or prohibitively expensive. There was a clear market opportunity for someone with fresh ideas and modern business practices to revolutionize the industry. I started small, using the profits from my digital marketing business to fund my education in real estate investment and senior care management. I enrolled in online courses, attended industry conferences, and networked with professionals who understood the sector. My background in digital marketing proved invaluable in ways my parents never could have anticipated. The same skills they dismissed as trivial were exactly what the senior care industry needed to modernize its approach to resident engagement and family communication. My first major breakthrough came when I identified Golden Years Manor, a struggling retirement community in Millbrook Springs, about 40 minutes from where my parents lived. The facility had been family-owned for decades, but was facing financial difficulties due to poor management and outdated practices. The aging owners were desperate to sell, but wanted to ensure the facility would continue serving residents with dignity and quality care. The research phase consumed months of my life. I analyzed financial statements, toured the facility multiple times.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story.
Interviewed current and former residents, and developed a comprehensive business plan for modernizing the operation. My digital marketing background allowed me to understand how to reach adult children who were making care decisions for their parents, while my millennial perspective helped me identify ways to improve both the resident experience and operational efficiency. The facility had incredible potential that the current management had failed to recognize. The building itself was structurally sound and beautifully designed, situated on 15 acres of landscaped grounds with views of the surrounding mountains. The location was ideal, close enough to the city for family visits, but peaceful and private enough to feel like a retreat. The problem wasn't the facility itself, but the outdated approach to running it. During my due diligence process, I discovered that several residents had been complaining about the lack of activities, poor communication with family members, and resistance to modernizing amenities. The current management saw these concerns as unreasonable demands from entitled residents rather than opportunities for improvement. I saw them as a roadmap for transformation. The financial negotiations proved more complex than I had anticipated. The asking price was substantial, requiring me to leverage not only my business profits, but also to secure investor partnerships and bank financing. This was where my previous dismissal by traditional financial institutions became particularly frustrating. Loan officers looked at my age and my non-traditional business background with skepticism, questioning whether someone without traditional corporate experience could successfully manage such a large operation. I spent countless hours preparing financial projections, market analyses, and operational plans that demonstrated my understanding of both the industry and the specific challenges facing Golden Years Manor. My digital marketing expertise became a significant asset during these presentations, as I could show exactly how I planned to increase occupancy rates and improve resident satisfaction through targeted outreach and modern communication strategies. The breakthrough came when I connected with Patricia Valdez, a veteran investment advisor who specialized in healthcare real estate. She reviewed my business plan and was impressed not by my age or unconventional background, but by the thoroughness of my research and the innovation of my proposed improvements. Patricia became my advocate in securing the necessary financing, helping me structure a deal that made the acquisition possible. The months leading up to the purchase were intense and secretive. I couldn't risk my parents discovering my plans before everything was finalized. They lived less than an hour away from Golden Years Manor, and my mother was actively researching retirement communities for herself and my father. The possibility that they might choose the very facility I was purchasing added an extra layer of complexity to the situation. Meanwhile, my parents' attitude toward my career hadn't improved. During our monthly phone calls, my father continued to make dismissive comments about my computer games, and my mother regularly forwarded job postings for real careers that she thought might interest me. They had no idea that I was working 18-hour days, managing complex financial transactions, and preparing to become one of the youngest retirement community owners in the state. The closing day arrived on a crisp October morning. I sat in the attorney's office signing document after document, officially transferring ownership of Golden Years Manor from the retiring family to Barbara Chen Enterprises. The weight of the responsibility was overwhelming and exhilarating simultaneously. I now owned a business that employed 47 people and was responsible for the daily care and well-being of 68 residents. My first week as owner was dedicated to meeting with staff, residents, and family members to understand their concerns, and priorities. The employees were initially skeptical of their young new boss, having worked for decades under traditional management. However, my approach of listening carefully to their expertise and involving them in planning improvements quickly won their respect and support. The residents were delighted to finally have an owner who was responsive to their suggestions and concerns. I implemented several immediate improvements. Upgraded Wi-Fi throughout the facility so residents could video chat with distant family members, introduced tablet-based systems for residents to communicate feedback, and established regular town hall meetings where concerns could be addressed openly. One of my first major innovations was creating a comprehensive digital platform that allowed family members to stay connected with their loved ones, daily activities, health updates, and social experiences. Parents and adult children could receive regular photos and updates about their family members' participation in activities, meal choices, and general well-being. This level of transparency and communication was revolutionary in an industry that had traditionally operated with minimal family involvement. The improvements weren't just cosmetic or technological. I invested heavily in staff training, upgraded meal service to include more diverse and healthy options, and expanded the activities program to include everything from art therapy to technology classes designed specifically for seniors. The transformation was gradual but comprehensive, touching every aspect of the resident experience. Within 6 months of my ownership, Golden Years Manor had a waiting list for the first time in years. Word spread throughout the community about the innovative young owner who was revolutionizing senior care through a combination of traditional values and modern approaches. Local media outlets began featuring stories about the facility's transformation, praising the blend of high-tech communication tools and old-fashioned personal attention. The success wasn't just measured in occupancy rates or financial performance, though both improved dramatically. Resident satisfaction surveys showed unprecedented levels of happiness and engagement. Family members praised the regular communication and transparency. Staff members reported higher job satisfaction and felt more valued and heard than they had in years. As the one-year anniversary of my purchase approached, my parents announced their decision to begin researching retirement communities. My mother had been diagnosed with early-stage arthritis that made maintaining their large home increasingly difficult, and my father had experienced some minor health scares that prompted them to consider their future care needs. Their criteria was predictably traditional. They wanted a facility with a solid reputation, experienced management, and what my father called proven leadership. They had no interest in trendy innovations or experimental approaches to senior care. They wanted stability, reliability, and management they could respect and trust. During one of our phone conversations, my mother mentioned that they had scheduled tours at several highly rated facilities in the region. "We're being very thorough in our research," she explained with her characteristic attention to detail. "We want to make sure we choose somewhere that's well established and professionally run. Not one of these new places with inexperienced management." I asked casually about their search criteria and which facilities they were considering. When she mentioned Golden Years Manor as their top choice, I nearly dropped the phone. The irony was perfect and terrifying simultaneously. My parents were planning to move into the very retirement community that their lazy millennial daughter had purchased and transformed into an award-winning facility. The tour was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in early November. I arranged to be present as the owner and executive director, though I planned to let my facility manager, Janet Rodriguez, conduct most of the initial presentation. Janet had been with Golden Years Manor for 15 years and commanded respect from even the most skeptical potential residents and their families. I spent the weekend before their visit in a state of nervous excitement. This was the moment I had been working toward for nearly 2 years, though I hadn't originally planned for it to unfold quite this dramatically. My parents would finally see the tangible results of the work ethic and business acumen they had dismissed, but they would discover it in the most personal way possible. The morning of their visit, I watched from my office window as their familiar silver Lexus pulled into the parking lot. My father emerged first, surveying the immaculate grounds and well-maintained buildings with his characteristic critical eye. My mother followed, clutching her leather purse and the notebook where she recorded observations about each facility they visited. Janet greeted them at the main entrance and began the standard tour, highlighting the renovated common areas, upgraded dining facilities, and expanded wellness programs. I monitored their progress through the building's security cameras, noting their expressions of approval as they observed the high-quality amenities and engaged residents. The tour proceeded smoothly for the first hour. My parents seemed genuinely impressed by the facility's blend of elegance and comfort, the obvious satisfaction of current residents, and the professional demeanor of the staff. During the dining room presentation, I watched my mother take detailed notes about the menu options and meal service quality. It was during the technology demonstration in the communications center that I decided to make my appearance. Janet was explaining the digital platform that allowed family members to stay connected with their loved ones when I entered the room carrying the ownership documentation and facility management credentials that would reveal my identity. "Mr. and Mrs. Chen," I said quietly, stepping into view as Janet paused her presentation. "I understand you're considering Golden Years Manor for your future residence." My father's response was immediate and characteristic. "Maya, what are you doing here? We're in the middle of a serious business meeting." His tone carried the familiar irritation he reserved for what he perceived as my inappropriate intrusions into adult conversations. I smiled calmly and handed him the leather portfolio containing my ownership documents, business licenses, and facility management certifications. "I'm here because I'm the owner and executive director of Golden Years Manor. I thought you might be interested to know that the facility you've chosen as your top choice is owned and operated by your lazy millennial daughter who apparently doesn't understand real work." The silence that followed was profound and satisfying. My mother opened and closed her mouth several times without producing sound, while my father stared at the official documents as if they might disappear if he blinked. Janet Rodriguez stepped discreetly backward, recognizing that this was a family moment that required privacy. "This is impossible," my mother finally whispered, her voice barely audible. "You can't own this place. You're barely 30 years old." You don't have the experience or the capital for something like this. I gestured around the beautifully appointed room, filled with residents engaged in various technology-assisted activities. This is what my internet hobby looks like when applied to real business challenges. The same digital marketing skills you dismissed as playing games have revolutionized how this facility communicates with families and markets its services. The lack of traditional experience you worried about allowed me to identify innovations that decades of conventional management had overlooked. My father was still studying the ownership documents with intense concentration, as if looking for evidence of forgery or some other explanation that would make sense within his worldview. How did you possibly afford this? The purchase price alone must have been millions. It was, I confirmed, pulling out the financial statements that showed the facility's transformation under my ownership. I leveraged the profits from my digital marketing business, secured investor partnerships, and convinced banks to fund the acquisition based on a comprehensive business plan that demonstrated how modern communication strategies could revitalize the senior care industry. The same business you've spent years telling me wasn't real. The next hour unfolded like a carefully choreographed revelation. I walked my parents through every aspect of the facility's operations, explaining how each improvement had been funded, planned, and implemented. I showed them the resident satisfaction surveys, the occupancy rate improvements, the staff retention statistics, and the community awards we had received for innovation in senior care. My mother's questions gradually shifted from skeptical challenges to genuine curiosity about my business strategies. She wanted to understand how I had identified the market opportunity, how I had convinced investors to support someone with my unconventional background, and how I had managed to transform the facility so successfully in such a short time. My father's response was more complex. He alternated between grudging admiration for the tangible results I had achieved and frustration that his fundamental assumptions about my capabilities had been so thoroughly disproven. Several times during our conversation, I caught him studying me, as if seeing me clearly for the first time. The financial discussion was particularly revealing. When I explained the revenue growth, cost management strategies, and expansion plans I had developed, my father's business experience allowed him to appreciate the sophistication of my approach. Despite his previous dismissals of my work, he couldn't deny the evidence of successful strategic planning and execution. The profit margins you've achieved are impressive, he admitted reluctantly, reviewing the quarterly reports I had prepared for their potential residency. These numbers indicate solid management and strategic thinking. I didn't realize your marketing background had given you this kind of financial analytical capability. My mother focused more on the human elements of my achievement. She interviewed several residents about their experiences since my ownership began, and their responses clearly demonstrated the positive impact of my innovations. Elderly residents spoke enthusiastically about the improved communication with their families, the expanded activities program, and the greater sense of dignity and respect they felt under my management. As the afternoon progressed, the dynamic between us shifted in ways I hadn't anticipated. My parents began asking for my advice about their own retirement planning, acknowledging that I had developed expertise in an area they knew little about. The role reversal was subtle but significant. Instead of lecturing me about real work and responsible career choices, they were seeking my professional guidance. The culminating moment came when we returned to my office and I presented them with the comprehensive residency package I had prepared specifically for their needs. I had anticipated their potential interest in Golden Years Manor and had developed customized service plans that addressed their particular health concerns, social preferences, and financial considerations. This level of personalized planning is exactly what we were hoping to find, my mother said, reading through the detailed care plan I had outlined for their potential residency. Most facilities offer generic packages with minimal customization. This shows real attention to individual needs and circumstances. My father was reviewing the financial aspects of their potential residency with his characteristic thoroughness. These pricing structures are competitive and transparent, he observed with professional appreciation. Much more straightforward than some of the other facilities we've visited. No hidden fees or confusing contract terms. The conversation eventually moved beyond business details to more personal territory. My parents began acknowledging how their preconceptions about my career and capabilities had blinded them to my actual achievements. The apology, when it came, was awkward but genuine. "Maya, we owe you an apology," my mother said quietly, her formal posture relaxing for the first time during the visit. "We were so focused on traditional markers of success that we completely failed to recognize what you were actually accomplishing. Your generation approaches business differently than ours, and we mistook different for inferior." My father's acknowledgement was more difficult for him but perhaps more meaningful because of the effort it required. "I was wrong about your work ethic and your capabilities," he said, meeting my eyes directly. "This facility is impressive, and the business strategy that created this transformation demonstrates exactly the kind of strategic thinking and execution I've always respected in business. I should have recognized your achievements instead of dismissing them." The remainder of their visit focused on practical details of their potential residency. We discussed their preferred apartment layouts, dietary requirements, social activity interests, and healthcare coordination needs. Throughout these conversations, my parents treated me as a respected professional rather than their underachieving daughter who needed constant guidance and correction. As they prepared to leave that evening, my father paused at the main entrance and looked back at the facility with what appeared to be genuine pride. "I'm impressed by what you've built here, Maya. This represents exactly the kind of entrepreneurial success and community contribution that any parent would be proud of." The next few weeks involved additional visits, contract negotiations, and move-in planning. My parents had decided definitively to become residents at Golden Years Manor, though they insisted on paying full market rates and receiving no special treatment beyond what any resident would expect. They wanted their residency to be based on the quality of care and services, rather than family connections. The move-in process became an opportunity for deeper conversations about our relationship and their previous misconceptions about my generation. My mother admitted that she had been influenced by media narratives about millennial laziness and entitlement, without considering how those stereotypes might not apply to her own daughter's actual experiences and achievements. We fell into the trap of judging an entire generation based on anecdotal stories and media headlines. She reflected during one of our planning sessions. "We should have been paying attention to your actual work and accomplishments instead of comparing them to our own career paths from 40 years ago." My father's evolution was more gradual but equally significant. He began asking detailed questions about my business strategies and operational decisions, approaching our conversations with the same respect he showed other business professionals whose expertise he valued. The condescending tone and dismissive attitude that had characterized our previous interactions completely disappeared. 6 months after their move-in, my parents had become two of Golden Years Manor's most satisfied residents and most effective advocates. My mother joined the resident council and helped plan social activities, while my father used his business background to mentor other residents who were transitioning from active careers to retirement. Their transformation from skeptical critics to proud supporters represented more than just a change in our family dynamic. They became living examples of how generational misunderstandings could be overcome through open communication and mutual respect. Their willingness to acknowledge their mistakes and adjust their perspectives earned them credibility with other residents and family members who had initially shared their skepticism about having such a young facility owner. The success of Golden Years Manor under my ownership attracted attention from industry publications and business networks. I was invited to speak at conferences about innovative approaches to senior care and generational leadership in traditional industries. The same unconventional background that had once made me seem unqualified became a unique selling point that demonstrated the value of fresh perspectives in established fields. Looking back on this journey, I realized that my parents' initial dismissal of my capabilities, while painful at the time, ultimately provided the motivation I needed to achieve something far more significant than I might have otherwise attempted. Their challenge to prove myself in the real world led me to create tangible value in a way that even the most traditional business minds could recognize and respect. The relationship between my parents and me today is stronger and more authentic than it has ever been. Instead of trying to force me into their preconceived notions of appropriate career paths, they now seek my advice on business and investment decisions. They've become genuine advocates for giving younger professionals opportunities to demonstrate their capabilities, rather than dismissing them based on generational stereotypes. The golden years of their lives are now being enriched by the very skills and perspectives they once dismissed as worthless. Every day they benefit from the innovations I brought to senior care, the digital communication platforms that keep them connected with family, the personalized service plans that address their individual needs, and the respect for their dignity and autonomy that drives every operational decision. Most importantly, they learn that true success isn't defined by following traditional pathways but by creating value and making positive contributions regardless of how unconventional the approach might seem. The lazy millennial they thought they knew had been working harder than they realized, just in ways they hadn't recognized or valued. Today, when other residents compliment them on their remarkable daughter who owns and operates such an exceptional facility, my parents respond with genuine pride and gratitude. They've learned to appreciate not just my achievements, but the determination and work ethic that made those achievements possible. The facility continues to thrive and expand under my leadership. We've added new services, attracted additional residents, and maintained our reputation as one of the region's premier retirement communities. The success isn't just measured in financial terms, but in the quality of life we provide for residents and the peace of mind we offer their families. My parents often tell other residents about their initial skepticism regarding my career choices, and how dramatically their perspectives changed once they understood what I had actually accomplished. These conversations help other families navigate their own generational misunderstandings and appreciate the diverse ways their adult children might be creating value in the modern economy. The story of Golden Years Manor became more than just a business success or a family reconciliation. It became a demonstration that innovation and tradition could work together, that different generations could learn from each other, and that success could be measured by the positive impact we have on other people's lives rather than just financial achievement or social status. As I walk through the halls of Golden Years Manor each day, greeting residents and coordinating with staff, I'm reminded that the most satisfying victories are those that create lasting value for others. The facility my parents dismissed as impossible became their home, and the career they criticized as frivolous became the foundation for their comfort and security in their golden years. The transformation of Golden Years Manor didn't happen overnight, and the months following my parents' initial visit became a masterclass in proving that millennial innovation could honor traditional values while exceeding conventional expectations. Every morning, I arrived at the facility before sunrise, determined to demonstrate that my generation's approach to business wasn't about shortcuts or participation trophies, but about reimagining possibilities that previous generations had never considered. My first major challenge came from the existing staff, many of whom had worked under traditional management for decades. Dorothy Martinez, the head nurse who had been with the facility for 23 years, approached me during my second week of ownership with barely concealed skepticism etched across her weathered features. She carried a clipboard thick with documentation and wore the expression of someone preparing for battle. "Miss Chen," she began, her tone carrying the weight of accumulated experience, "I've seen plenty of new owners come through here with big ideas about changing everything. Most of them don't last 6 months before they realize this business is harder than it looks. These residents aren't your typical customers, and their families aren't easy to please. What makes you think you can do better than people who've been in this industry longer than you've been alive?" The question hung in the air like a challenge, and I recognized it as a pivotal moment that would define my relationship with the staff and, ultimately, the success of my vision for the facility. I had prepared for this confrontation, understanding that earning the respect of experienced caregivers would be essential to implementing any meaningful improvements. "You're absolutely right that I don't have decades of experience in senior care," I replied, meeting her gaze directly. "But I do have something different to offer. I understand technology in ways that can enhance the care you already provide, not replace it. I'm not here to dismiss your expertise, Dorothy. I'm here to give you better tools to do the job you already do brilliantly." I spent the next hour walking through the facility with Dorothy and the other senior staff members, listening to their frustrations and concerns. They spoke about outdated equipment, communication breakdowns between shifts, family members who demanded constant updates but complained about interruptions, and administrative burdens that pulled them away from direct patient care. Each problem they described became an opportunity to demonstrate how modern solutions could address long-standing challenges without compromising the personal touch that made quality care possible. When Dorothy complained about the time-consuming process of updating family members individually about their loved ones' daily activities, I showed her the digital platform I had been developing that could streamline communication while actually increasing the frequency and quality of family updates. This system would allow you to upload photos and brief notes throughout the day, I explained, demonstrating the interface on my tablet. Family members receive notifications when new content is posted, but they can view it at their convenience instead of calling during your busiest hours. You spend less time on phone calls, but families feel more connected to their loved ones' daily experiences. Dorothy examined the system with the careful attention of someone who had learned to be suspicious of technological solutions that promised to simplify her work. What happens when the system crashes? What happens when family members can't figure out how to use it? What happens when they start complaining that a photo wasn't posted fast enough, or they want more details than what's shown? Her questions revealed the practical wisdom that came from years of dealing with the complexities of family dynamics and the emotional intensity surrounding elder care. I realized that winning her support would require more than demonstrating technological capability. I needed to show that I understood and respected the human elements that made her job both challenging and meaningful. Over the following weeks, I implemented a gradual rollout of new systems, working closely with Dorothy and other experienced staff members to identify potential problems before they became actual issues. We developed protocols for system backups, created simple training materials for family members, and established clear boundaries about response times for digital communications. The breakthrough came when Dorothy's favorite resident, Mrs. Eleanor Peterson, received a video message from her granddaughter in Tokyo through the new communication platform. Mrs. Peterson had been feeling isolated and depressed since her family had moved overseas, and traditional phone calls were complicated by the time difference and her hearing difficulties. The video message feature allowed her granddaughter to record updates about her daily life, share photos of her apartment and workplace, and maintain a connection that would have been impossible through conventional communication methods. Mrs. Peterson's mood improved dramatically, and she began looking forward to checking her tablet each morning for new messages from family members around the world. "I have to admit," Dorothy told me after witnessing Mrs. Peterson's transformation, "this isn't what I expected when you started talking about technology improvements. I thought you were going to try to replace human interaction with machines. Instead, you've found a way to enhance the human connections that make this work meaningful." Word of the communication platform's success spread quickly among residents and their families. Adult children who lived in different states or countries began requesting information about becoming residents specifically because of the innovative family connection services. The facility's occupancy rate, which had been declining for years, suddenly reversed course as word spread about the unique blend of traditional care and modern communication. My parents, who had initially postponed their move-in date while observing the facility's transition, began expressing genuine enthusiasm about the improvements they witnessed during their regular visits. My mother, who had always been an early adopter of technology despite my father's resistance, was particularly impressed by the resident portal system that allowed potential residents to preview daily life at the facility. "Maya, this virtual tour feature is remarkable," she said during one of their planning visits, scrolling through interactive floor plans and activity schedules on her smartphone. "We can see exactly what our daily routine would look like and explore all the amenities without having to schedule multiple in-person visits. This level of transparency builds confidence in a way that traditional brochures never could." My father, whose skepticism about technology ran deeper than my mother's, was more impressed by the financial transparency and operational efficiency improvements. The digital record-keeping systems allowed for real-time tracking of expenses, medication administration, and care plan updates in ways that reduced errors and improved accountability. These automated reporting systems eliminate the possibility of documentation errors that could lead to medical mistakes or billing disputes, he observed, reviewing the quarterly operational reports I had prepared for their residency planning. "The level of oversight and quality control is actually higher than what most traditional facilities offer, not lower." The success with residents and families created momentum for more ambitious improvements. I began working with local healthcare providers to establish partnerships that could offer residents access to specialized services without requiring transportation to multiple appointments. Telemedicine consultations, physical therapy sessions, and even dental care could be provided on-site through partnerships with practitioners who understood the unique needs of senior patients. Dr. Amanda Foster, a geriatrician who had been serving Golden Years Manor residents for years, became an enthusiastic supporter of the integrated care approach. She had grown frustrated with the fragmented nature of senior healthcare, where residents often struggled to coordinate between multiple providers and family members, had difficulty staying informed about their loved ones' medical needs. "What you've created here is revolutionary," Dr. Foster explained during one of our monthly planning meetings. "The digital health records allow me to track changes in patients' conditions over time in ways that were impossible with paper charts. Family members can access appropriate medical updates with their loved ones' permission, and the care staff can implement treatment plans more effectively because everyone has access to the same current information." The integrated approach attracted attention from other healthcare professionals who wanted to understand how technology could enhance rather than complicate senior care. We began hosting monthly seminars for industry professionals, sharing our experiences and learning from other innovative facilities around the country. These professional networks became invaluable sources of ideas and best practices. I connected with other young entrepreneurs who were revolutionizing various aspects of senior services, from meal delivery systems designed for elderly dietary restrictions, to adaptive technology that helped residents with mobility or cognitive challenges maintain independence. One particularly impactful collaboration began when I met James Park, a former tech executive who had developed specialized software for managing complex medication regimens. His system could track multiple prescriptions, identify potential drug interactions, and send alerts to medical staff about timing and dosage requirements. Traditional facilities often rely on paper charts and manual checking systems that leave room for human error. James explained during our initial consultation, "Your residents often take 8 or 10 different medications daily, and keeping track of interactions, side effects, and scheduling requires more precision than manual systems can reliably provide." The medication management system integration required extensive staff training and careful coordination with residents, physicians, and pharmacists. Dorothy Martinez, who had become one of my strongest allies among the staff, led the training program and helped develop protocols that combined technological precision with the personal attention that elderly patients required. "The system catches things that even experienced nurses might miss," Dorothy admitted after the first month of using the new medication management protocols. "Yesterday, it flagged a potential interaction between Mrs. Rodriguez's heart medication and a new prescription her doctor had added. We were able to contact her physician immediately and adjust the dosage before any problems occurred." The medication management success led to other technological improvements that enhanced rather than replaced human care. We implemented sensor systems that could detect falls or unusual activity patterns without being invasive or making residents feel monitored. Emergency response times improved significantly, and family members appreciated the additional safety measures that allowed their loved ones to maintain privacy and dignity while receiving protection. My parents' move-in date approached as the facility's reputation continued to grow. Local media outlets began featuring stories about the innovative young owner, who was revolutionizing senior care through the thoughtful integration of technology and traditional values. The coverage attracted attention from other family members who were researching care options for their aging parents. We've had inquiries from families in 3 different states. Janet Rodriguez, my facility manager, reported during our weekly operations meeting. "Word is spreading through online reviews and family networks about the unique services we offer. The waiting list for premium apartments is now 6 months long." The success created new challenges that required careful management. Rapid growth could compromise the personalized attention that made Golden Years Manor special, and I was determined not to sacrifice quality for expansion. We developed strict protocols for maintaining staff-to-resident ratios, ensuring that new residents received the same level of individual attention that had become our signature strength. As the 1-year anniversary of my ownership approached, I commissioned an independent evaluation of the facility's performance compared to industry standards. The results exceeded even my optimistic projections. Resident satisfaction scores were 30% above regional averages. Staff retention had improved by 45%, and family satisfaction with communication and transparency was essentially unprecedented in the industry. The evaluation report became a powerful tool for attracting additional investors interested in expanding the model to other facilities. I received offers to franchise the operational systems or partner with established senior care companies to implement similar improvements at their locations. The business that my parents had dismissed as impossible was becoming a model for industry transformation. My relationship with my parents continued to evolve as they prepared for their residency. Our conversations shifted from their skeptical questions about my capabilities to genuine curiosity about business strategy and operational decisions. They began asking for my advice about their own financial planning and retirement preparation, acknowledging that I had developed expertise in areas they had never considered. "Maya, we'd like you to review our estate planning documents," my mother said during one of our family dinners. "Your understanding of senior care costs and long-term financial planning has become much more sophisticated than ours. We trust your judgment about what we should anticipate for our future needs." My father's transformation was even more striking. The man who had lectured me about real work and practical skills began asking detailed questions about my business development strategies and operational innovations. He wanted to understand how I had identified market opportunities that established industry players had overlooked. "Your approach to this business demonstrates exactly the kind of strategic thinking I've always respected in successful entrepreneurs," he told me during one of our planning sessions. "You identified a problem that others were accepting as unsolvable, developed innovative solutions, and executed a plan that created value for everyone involved. That's textbook business excellence." The personal validation was meaningful, but more important was the recognition that my success was creating opportunities for other young professionals who wanted to make positive contributions in traditional industries. I began speaking at business schools and entrepreneurship conferences, sharing the story of how unconventional backgrounds could bring fresh perspectives to established fields. The month before my parents' move-in, Golden Years Manor received its first major industry award for innovation in senior care. The recognition came from the National Association of Senior Living Professionals, an organization that had been skeptical of technological integration in traditional care settings. Golden Years Manor represents the future of senior care, the award citation read. The facility demonstrates that innovation and tradition can work together to enhance both the quality of care and the quality of life for residents and their families. The leadership shown by Barbara Chen proves that fresh perspectives and new approaches can honor the values that make senior care meaningful while improving outcomes for everyone involved. The award ceremony provided an opportunity to reflect on how dramatically my life had changed since that devastating Thanksgiving dinner 3 years earlier. The woman my parents had dismissed as lacking real-world skills was now being recognized as an industry leader whose innovations were being studied and replicated across the country. More importantly, the success was creating tangible improvements in the lives of elderly residents and their families. Every day I witnessed the impact of our communication systems, healthcare coordination, and personalized services on people who deserve dignity, respect, and connection during their golden years. My parents' move-in day arrived on a sunny Thursday morning in late spring. They had chosen a spacious 2-bedroom apartment with a view of the facility's gardens and walking paths. The unit had been customized with their specific preferences for furniture arrangement, lighting, and accessibility features. As we toured their new home together, I realized that this moment represented more than just their transition to assisted living. It symbolized the complete transformation of our relationship and their understanding of what their millennial daughter had actually accomplished through her unconventional career path. "Maya, this is beautiful," my mother said, standing in the sunlit living room and looking out at the professionally landscaped grounds. The attention to individual preferences and personal touches makes this feel like a real home, not an institutional facility. My father was examining the technology integration in their apartment, with the same careful attention he had once given to dismissing my digital marketing career. The communication tablet, emergency response system, and healthcare coordination features were seamlessly integrated into the living space without creating a clinical or impersonal atmosphere. "The way you've balanced high-tech capabilities with traditional comfort is remarkable," he observed, testing the video calling system that would allow them to stay connected with family members around the world. "This technology enhances the living experience without dominating it or making residents feel like they're living in a computer lab." Their first week as residents provided opportunities for them to experience firsthand all the improvements that had transformed Golden Years Manor over the past year. They participated in activities programs that combined traditional social events with innovative technology education. They received meals prepared according to their dietary preferences and medical requirements. They experienced the communication systems that kept them connected with distant family members and provided updates about their daily activities. Most significantly, they witnessed the respect and genuine care that the staff provided to all residents. The technological improvements had enhanced the staff's ability to provide personalized attention, but the foundation of quality care remained the human connections that made residents feel valued and dignified. The staff treats every resident like family, my mother observed after her first week of living at the facility. They remember personal preferences, ask about family members, and take time to have real conversations. The technology helps them be more efficient, but it hasn't replaced the personal touch that makes this place special. My father's observations focused more on the operational excellence that supported the quality care experience. He appreciated the efficiency of the administrative systems, the coordination between different service providers, and the transparency of billing and healthcare documentation. This level of organizational sophistication would be impressive in any business setting, he told me during one of our weekly check-in conversations. The fact that you've achieved it in an industry known for outdated practices and resistance to change makes it even more remarkable. You've proven that innovation doesn't require abandoning the values that make something worthwhile. As my parents settled into their new routine at Golden Years Manor, their transformation from skeptical critics to proud advocates continued. They began inviting friends to visit and tour the facility, sharing their experiences with other families who were researching senior care options. Their endorsement carried particular weight because of their initial skepticism about my capabilities and my generation's approach to business. Other families trusted their judgment because they knew my parents had been thorough in their research and demanding in their expectations for quality care. Richard and Barbara were the most skeptical potential residents we've ever encountered, Janet Rodriguez observed after my parents had been living at the facility for several months. Now they're our most effective ambassadors. When other families hear about their positive experience, they know it's based on genuinely high standards, rather than easy satisfaction. The word-of-mouth marketing generated by satisfied residents and their families became more valuable than any traditional advertising campaign. The facility's reputation spread through networks of adult children who were facing difficult decisions about their aging parents' care needs. 6 months after my parents' move-in, Golden Years Manor was operating at full capacity with a waiting list for preferred apartment types. The financial success allowed for additional improvements and expansion of services that benefited all residents. We added a fitness center designed specifically for senior exercise needs, expanded the arts and crafts programs, and established partnerships with local cultural organizations that brought entertainment and educational opportunities directly to the facility. The success also created opportunities to help other families navigate the challenges of transitioning elderly parents to assisted living. I began offering consultation services to families who were struggling to find appropriate care options or dealing with resistance from parents who were reluctant to leave their longtime homes. Your experience with your own parents gives you credibility that other consultants can't match, explained Margaret Thompson, whose family had hired me to help plan her father's transition to assisted living. You understand both the adult children's concerns and the parents' fears, because you've been through this process yourself, both as a daughter and as a professional. The consulting work led to speaking opportunities at conferences for families dealing with aging parents. I shared strategies for having difficult conversations about care needs, identifying red flags in potential facilities, and maintaining family relationships during stressful transition periods. These presentations often included my parents as examples of how initial resistance could evolve into genuine appreciation when families found care options that truly met their needs and preferences. My parents began sharing their own story at some of these events, describing their journey from skepticism to satisfaction. We were wrong about our daughter's capabilities, and we were wrong about what modern senior care could offer. My father would tell audiences of adult children facing similar decisions. The combination of traditional values with innovative approaches created a care experience that exceeded our expectations in every way. The industry recognition continued to grow as other facilities began implementing similar technology integration and family communication systems. I was invited to serve on advisory boards for organizations developing new approaches to senior care, and my opinions were sought by investors considering opportunities in the aging services sector. The transformation from dismissed millennial to industry leader was complete, but more importantly, the success was creating lasting positive impact for elderly residents and their families. Every day brought new opportunities to demonstrate that innovation and compassion could work together to enhance the dignity and quality of life for people in their golden years. My parents' experience as residents provided ongoing insights into areas for continued improvement. Their feedback helped refine services and identify new opportunities to enhance the resident experience. They became partners in the facility's evolution, rather than simply beneficiaries of the care provided. "We're not just living here now," my mother explained during one of our family dinners in the facility's dining room. "We're part of a community that continues to grow and improve. Our opinions matter, our suggestions are valued, and we feel like we're contributing to something meaningful rather than just receiving services." The transformation extended beyond our personal relationship to influence how other families approach generational differences and career expectations. Stories about Golden Years Manor's success began appearing in publications focused on family relationships and intergenerational communication. The facility became a model for how different generations could learn from each other rather than dismissing each other's perspectives. My parents' journey from skepticism to advocacy demonstrated that preconceptions could be overcome through open dialogue and demonstrated results. As the second anniversary of my ownership approached, Golden Years Manor had become more than a successful business or a family reconciliation story. It had become a demonstration that innovation could honor tradition, that different approaches could create superior results, and that success could be measured by the positive impact on other people's lives rather than just financial achievement. The lazy millennial who supposedly lacked work ethic or practical skills had created a thriving business that employed over 60 people and provided quality care for more than 100 elderly residents. The soft skills that previous generations had dismissed as irrelevant had become the foundation for revolutionary improvements in an industry that desperately needed fresh thinking and innovative solutions. 2 years later, I stood before the National Senior Care Excellence Awards ceremony, accepting the Industry Innovation Leader of the Year award. The irony wasn't lost on me that the same parents who once called me lazy were now sitting in the front row, beaming with pride as their daughter received recognition for revolutionizing an entire industry. The journey had come full circle in ways none of us could have predicted. Golden Years Manor wasn't just my parents' home anymore. It had become the flagship location for what was now a network of 5 facilities across 3 states. Each new location implemented the same blend of cutting-edge technology and traditional care values that had transformed our original facility from a struggling operation into a model for the entire industry. My father approached the podium after the ceremony, his eyes bright with the kind of pride he'd never shown for my digital marketing achievements. "Maya, I owe you more than an apology. I owe you recognition for what you've accomplished here. When I see what you've built, how many families you've helped, how many elderly people are living with dignity because of your vision, I realize we completely misunderstood what success could look like." My mother joined us, carrying a leather portfolio that contained newspaper clippings, magazine articles, and industry publications featuring stories about our facilities. "We've been keeping a scrapbook," she said with uncharacteristic emotion in her voice. "Every article, every award, every family testimonial about how you've changed their lives. We wanted to document the real impact of your work, not just the business success." The transformation in our relationship had rippled out to affect how they interacted with other young professionals and entrepreneurs. My parents had become advocates for giving millennials opportunities to demonstrate their capabilities rather than dismissing them based on generational stereotypes. They regularly spoke at business networking events about the importance of recognizing unconventional talent and supporting innovative approaches to traditional challenges. "We learned that different doesn't mean inferior," my father explained during one such presentation. "Our daughter's generation approaches problems with tools and perspectives that we didn't have access to when we were building our careers. Instead of seeing those differences as weaknesses, we should be learning from them and finding ways to combine generational strengths. The success of our facilities had attracted attention from major healthcare corporations interested in acquiring or partnering with our company. The offers were substantial, but I had turned down each one because they typically involved compromising the personalized approach that made our care model effective. The corporate buyers wanted to scale our innovations rapidly, but they didn't understand that the human elements couldn't be mass-produced or franchised without losing their effectiveness. Instead, I had chosen to grow more slowly, carefully selecting expansion opportunities that allowed us to maintain our quality standards while sharing our approach with more families. Each new facility was developed with extensive input from residents, family members, and staff from our existing locations. The growth strategy prioritized sustainable excellence over rapid expansion. Dorothy Martinez, who had become our Director of Clinical Excellence, played a crucial role in training staff at new locations. Her transformation from skeptical veteran to enthusiastic advocate for innovation had made her particularly effective at helping other experienced caregivers understand how technology could enhance, rather than replace, their expertise. The secret isn't the technology itself, Dorothy would tell new staff members during training sessions. The secret is using technology to give us more time for what really matters, connecting with residents, understanding their individual needs, and providing the kind of personal attention that makes them feel valued and respected. The communication platforms we had developed were now being licensed to other senior care facilities across the country. The revenue from these licensing agreements allowed us to fund research and development of new innovations, while maintaining our focus on providing exceptional care at our own facilities. We had created a sustainable business model that generated value for multiple stakeholders without compromising our core mission. My parents had become some of our most effective advocates within the resident community. Other elderly residents trusted their judgment because they knew my parents had been initially skeptical and demanding in their expectations for quality care. Their endorsement carried weight with families who were researching senior living options for their own aging parents. "We're not just residents here," my mother would tell prospective families during facility tours. "We're partners in a community that continues to evolve and improve. Our daughter doesn't just own this place. She listens to our feedback, implements our suggestions, and treats us like valued contributors to something meaningful." The success had also created opportunities for me to mentor other young entrepreneurs who wanted to make positive impacts in traditional industries. I regularly spoke at business schools and startup incubators, sharing the lessons I had learned about identifying market opportunities, building credibility with skeptical stakeholders, and maintaining quality standards during rapid growth. Don't let anyone tell you that your generation lacks work ethic or real-world skills, I would tell audiences of young professionals. Channel that criticism into motivation to prove them wrong through results, not arguments. Build something so undeniably valuable that even your harshest critics have to acknowledge your achievements. The final vindication came when my father asked me to review his own retirement investment portfolio and provide advice about long-term financial planning. The man who had once lectured me about practical skills was now seeking my professional guidance on complex financial decisions. "Your success in business has given you insights into economic trends and investment strategies that I don't have," he admitted during one of our consulting sessions. "I trust your judgment about these matters because you've demonstrated the kind of strategic thinking that creates lasting value." Today, as I walk through Golden Years Manor each morning, I'm reminded that the most satisfying success comes from creating something that improves other people's lives. The facility that began as proof of my capabilities has become a home where elderly residents live with dignity, families stay connected across distances, and dedicated caregivers have the tools they need to provide exceptional service. The lazy millennial narrative had been completely rewritten. The woman my parents thought lacked work ethic had created a thriving enterprise that employed hundreds of people and provided quality care for thousands of elderly residents. The soft skills they had dismissed as irrelevant had become the foundation for innovations that were transforming an entire industry. My parents often tell other residents about their initial skepticism and how dramatically their perspectives changed once they understood what I had actually accomplished. These conversations help other families navigate their own generational misunderstandings and appreciate the diverse ways their adult children might be creating value in the modern economy. The success story continues to evolve as we expand our network of facilities and develop new innovations in senior care. Each day brings opportunities to demonstrate that generational differences can be sources of strength rather than division, that innovation can honor tradition while improving outcomes, and that true success is measured by the positive impact we have on other people's lives. The retirement community my parents had chosen as their final home had become the launching pad for a revolution in senior care, proving that sometimes the best revenge against those who underestimate you is not revenge at all, but transformation into everything they said you could never become. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.